Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast Super One. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
in today's episode 160 of Podcast Super One. Yes, youtube.com/Super One Studios, the best place to consume the content. And if you didn't know, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. They have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year. Kapow. Daniel, it's episode 160.
Wow.
Yeah, 160 of Podcast Super One. We're kind of in a small holding pattern with Mando season 3 ending, Guardians around the corner. We have Ahsoka in August. And we have all these other movies happening throughout the summer, like The Flash, Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, all these big blockbusters. So I think maybe this week and maybe next week, we might have a different topic next week, but let's kind of slow down a little bit. Instead of breaking down a TV show, instead of breaking down a movie or talking about one of our big three, let's kind of just talk about some of the news and some of the things that we've been doing in our lives.
Yeah.
So just a question for you. What you been watching, what you've been playing?
Yeah. So quite a bit, actually. Been watching quite a bit. Catherine and I are on season 2 of Fargo, the FX show. Never watched it. Always heard great things. Great. Season 1 was wonderful. It's like the closest thing I've watched to Breaking Bad in terms of good storytelling that is paired with like really innovative cinematography, and just like it feels a bit like Breaking Bad level of just storytelling. And I think it's definitely a different tone. It's a bit more goofy or dark humory in ways that Breaking Bad isn't.
Like the Coen brothers, which is what Fargo is. Yeah.
Right. And so, but it definitely still feels like that level of quality in the performances, in the writing, and in, just everything about it. And so we're on season 2. It's a brand new cast every season.
Mm-hmm.
The first season had I'm not going to remember most of the names, but Billy Bob Thornton
is in one of them, right?
He's not in the one we're on. It may be the third one. I know that they go back in time every season. So like the first season was set in 2006. The second one's in 1979. And I know like the fourth one's in 1950 or something and has Chris Rock. I don't know about the third as much, but yeah. So we're really enjoying that. I highly recommend Fargo, especially if you like shows like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. We are in the midst of Yellow Jackets season 2, the Showtime horror show. It's good. It is also a little bit corny unintentionally sometimes. And I'm still waiting to figure out if they can deliver on all the kind of setup they've done, because they've set up a lot and some of it I would have expected to pay off by now, and it keeps kind of going on. So we're enjoying it. It's got some nice little horror elements. But it's a little uneven as well.
Well, I hear season 2 is not as great as season 1, but I also hear it's kind of leaning into some of these Lost vibes in season 2, like more mysterious, kind of maybe supernatural, maybe not. Kind of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a lot of similarity with Lost, just a lot more horror. It's interesting. I mean, like, again, if you're a fan of horror, it's well acted. Right. It's got the same, one of the leads. She was the lady that was head of like the St. Louis like group in the Last of Us show, like the head lady that was trying to hunt down Joel and Ellie. And I think they were in St. Louis.
Or from 2.5 Men.
I never watched that. So maybe.
She's a huge, she's a Rose in 2.5 Men.
Okay.
Like in every episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So she is the lead in it. And she does really well.
Interesting.
Other than that, I'm trying to think. We watched Tetris a few weeks ago, the Apple movie. It was enjoyable. I wouldn't say it was a great movie, but it's, especially if you have a lot of like Nintendo or video game nostalgia, I think it's worth watching. There's some fun shots with him going to like Nintendo, or scenes with him going to like Nintendo of America, and things that will jog, your nostalgia a bit.
Yeah.
Gaming wise, I've been bouncing around a bit. I few months ago, I started playing Divinity Original Sin 2, which is the giant isometric turn-based RPG. And it's wonderful. I've almost beat it once and then restarted because I was a bit too low leveled at the final boss. And I've kind of got halfway through it again. It's a great game if you love RPGs. I've been playing a little Far Cry 4. Playing through that again. I really think, man, I know that like the giant open world is not necessarily your cup of tea, but there is no other game that gives me the feeling of I'm in an action movie and I can act like an action movie and the game works. I mean, like, you're chasing a car, so you like, what do they call it? Wingsuit down until you grab onto the side, shoot one guy. There's a car over here. You chuck a grenade over there. I mean, it's just like you're a one-man wrecking. You're like Rambo, and like it's the setups and just it's not even like the missions themselves are awesome, but like just kind of the emergent gameplay that happens when you're on your way to a mission and then you get ambushed and then you have to fight, tooth and claw out of this. And then right when you're done with that, you get attacked by a tiger. It's just this kind of like, it's the moment to moment gameplay is really a lot of fun. So yeah, that's been me. Quite a bit of things, spanning the gambit, but yeah. How about you? What you've been watching, playing, and all that kind of stuff?
First of all, Far Cry. It sounds great. I'll probably never play it though.
Sure. I know.
Is that me? Is that a timer on my end?
I didn't hear anything, so I'm assuming so.
I don't know what the timer could be. Do you not hear anything at all right now?
No.
Oh, don't know what it was. There's a timer going off on my side of the screen here, and I didn't have a timer going. I just exited off the browser, and now it went away. What I've been watching, what I've been playing. Well, as you know, I watch a lot of shit. So I'm in the middle of Succession, the last season, this last episode, episode 4, I believe, I thought was like one of my favorite episodes of the series. Cool. And it is just we're ramping up to the finale here, and there's a reason why it's nominated for Emmys every year, and
sure. Yep.
The acting and the writing is it's top tier. It's one of the best shows ever made, in my opinion. And this last episode, I was just like, damn, it's just like I was literally like leaning into the screen. I just finished, it's great. I just finished Shrinking a couple weeks back, and I wasn't really on board in the beginning, but it had my boy Harrison Ford and Jason Segel in it. But by the end of it, I was really on board, and I just like spending time with the characters. And
that's what I've heard. It gets better, kind of like the first few episodes. It can kind of not grab you as much.
Yeah, exactly. It's Bill Lawrence who also did Scrubs.
Oh yeah, right.
And I think, and also Ted Lasso, which I'm also watching at the moment. And it's like every Tuesday night, because it drops early Tuesday night. I'm like, oh yeah, Ted Lasso, and so I'm loving watching that. I'm watching Barry, of course, and I'm current on that. Episode 3 is dropped. I'm not as super into it as I was, and like I think like as the seasons have gone on, season 3 was great in a lot of ways, but I think the downfall of Barry is less interesting to me than the first 2 seasons of Barry. But I am very curious to see where it's going. This last episode did some good stuff, so I can tell we're getting closer to a sort of end game with that, because it's also the last season. And
it'll be really interesting how they end with that character, because I mean, he is the protagonist, but he's been so unlikable, especially like in season 3 and end of season 2. It's like, I'm really curious about what they're wanting us to feel about Barry by the end of this, because they've done some work about like showing his trauma, like showing what happened in the war and how he started becoming a killer and all this kind of stuff. It's just, it'll be very interesting what taste they want to leave in our mouths with that.
I wish I had gone back and watched the first 3 seasons again back to back before this one, because I have a feeling by the time this one ends, I will not want to rewatch those anytime soon.
Sure.
But I'm curious to see what's happening with it. Again, I'm watching it as it's dropping. Also, I'm always concurring with How I Met Your Father, which is a great sitcom.
Oh yeah.
And then I am also watching a show on Apple TV called The Door Next Prize, The Next Door Prize. the Next Door Prize is what it's called, and
Okay.
it's also Bill Lawrence and the guy who did Shrinking and Ted Lasso, and it's the first couple episodes I was like in love with, and I'm
Mm,
starting to lose a little interest. I'm like
yeah.
episode 5 or 6 in, but it's basically about this almost like arcade, like you put $1 in, machine appears in this gas station in this kind of mundane town, and they put $1 in or a coin in, and it gives like what your life purpose is.
Hmm.
And then everyone starts doing it in town, and everyone starts getting, you know, I'm a supposed to be a rock star and I'm a teacher, and
Sure.
what does that mean? Like, and it's like, oh yeah, I was always supposed to be a rock star, and it's kind of like this talent awakening individually up, and like people changing and making decisions. Like the main character, his wife, starts like, oh, I always liked hot, spicy wings. He's like, well, no, you didn't. You've always liked these mild barbecue ones. She's like, no, I
Mm,
just didn't tell you because you liked them. So it's like it's kind of
gotcha.
dealing with like people becoming their true self, and then other people wrestling with like, if
Sure.
is this all I have to offer? And
Sure.
there's an interesting thing where it follows like this main character the whole time, but it also like it's jumping every episode to like a new character, their journey, and then how what the thing means for them. And it's really funny, and it's got a lot of charm to it. I'd check
What's it
that
on?
out on it. Apple TV.
Okay. Cool. Is it an
Like
Apple TV original?
yeah, it just dropped
Cool.
like 4 weeks ago for the first time. And so I'm really digging that. I need to hop back in. I'm like an episode behind or two. But anyway, I watch a lot of stuff. So on top of I've been really into Star Wars lately because of Mandalorian, and I rewatched the prequel trilogy. And then this
Oh
morning, I was
yeah.
watching scenes from Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Um, and then I'm almost done with Solo again. So and I'm watching Rebels now. And then anyway, I'm Jedi Survivor. I think whenever that comes out and whenever I finish it, I think my Star Wars will subside a little bit. That's kind of like I think I'm peaking to that. But I've been playing mainly Resident Evil. I
Mm,
played Resident Evil 4 come out. I bought Hogwarts Legacy and I played a good 5 hours of that, and I
yeah.
really liked it. And I liked the world and stuff. But then I was kind of got seduced by Dead Space and Callisto
Yeah.
Protocol, and I got seduced by these more unique, not unique, but like singular 8-10 hour stories.
Sure.
And then Resident Evil 4 come out, and my oh my, what a treat,
Now,
And
just for a second with Hogwarts, were you a Potter kid? Were you like a big Harry Potter kid?
oh yeah,
Like read the books
absolutely.
and stuff and like
Weirdly, I bought all the books when they come out, but I didn't read any of them until the third movie come out. And then
okay.
I
Yeah.
started reading Goblet of Fire, and I skipped the first 3 books. And then
Okay.
I read all, and I become like,
Into
obsessed
it.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, even more. I loved the movies as a kid. And then I finally went back and read the first 2 books.
Sure.
Um, not too long ago, actually. I still haven't read the third book, which should be my favorite because it has time travel in it.
Sure.
Um, but anyway, I own the Cursed Child play.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I love Harry Potter. Yeah, I just love it.
okay.
So
So I mean I would think that like yeah, like Hogwarts Legacy would be like a dream game, like a dream game of your childhood, right? In so many ways.
when I've played it, I've really loved being in the world and running
Right.
around Hogwarts, and I've really enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
also it's just being trumped by these other games that are like coming out around
Sure.
it. So
Yeah, I
I
think I've put in like 20 hours myself. And
on Hogwarts Legacy.
yeah. I played it
Oh
when it
wow,
came
I had
out,
no
and
idea you're playing.
yeah, sorry. Well, I haven't in a couple months now. I mean, when did it come out? In like February. And I probably
Yeah,
played it for
mid or
3 or 4 weeks and then kind of haven't touched it since. And part of it is because like I watched all the Harry Potter movies and I read all the books, but I was never like it was never like Star Wars was my thing, not Harry Potter. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it is. I mean, like, so the gameplay I thought was pretty good.
sure.
I do like unlocking the spells. That was fun.
Hmm.
But I did feel like once I'd kind of gotten into it and played through a few of the main missions and done some of the side stuff, that like it did feel like a very sterile Hogwarts world where like it
Yeah,
has this. I mean, everything looks amazing and like is so lore accurate or whatever. Hogwarts is so fun to explore, but there wasn't that much of interesting things to find. like you do this really cool dungeon and you get a new hat. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of had the feeling of like, a mile wide and an inch deep. Not completely an inch deep, because there is some like fun systems to do. I mean, it has like a whole like Pokemon system. I don't know if you got to this. Like I kept playing and kept unlocking new systems. And it was like the latest one was like, oh yeah, you use this bag to go catch all these wild animals and then bring them back to your like base thing and let them out. And then I was just like, this is Pokemon. This is interesting. But anyway. So yeah, I think it's this thing of like, if they made that game, except it was a Star Wars skin, essentially, like instead of learning spells, you're learning force powers, and you've got a lightsaber instead of a wand, and instead of like one location, maybe you got 4 or 5 planets with big like open world hubs on those to go like between, and like that, I might never stop playing that game. You know what I mean? Like that game could ruin me. I might lose my job because of that game. And so it's basically applying, because I think this game very much had like the Ubisoft formula a little bit. It's a giant map with all these icons, and you don't know what's there till you get there, kind of stuff. And the broom flying was fun. I'll say that. Though no Quidditch in the game just feels like heresy. But again, if that was Star Wars, instead of a broom, you got in a Jedi starfighter and was flying up into space, and like, because I feel like even if the story was just only serviceable, which from the little bit of online stuff, like I've heard people that talk about it that are really into Harry Potter be like, yeah, it's fine. It's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's fine.
I think that's
that
my
would probably be enough for me in Star Wars world, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it was just fine, but I could literally just be in Star Wars and kind of a realistic sim, open, go do whatever you want, be a Jedi kind of thing, like with good action, adventure gameplay.
Let me tell you the best one, Daniel. Well, the best version of what you're talking about. So that's the thing. I think my hang up with this game is that I like being in the world, and I like having my own hairstyle, like I do like that kind of stuff. I think the story is just not grabbing me enough, or I'm like, I have to know what happens next.
Yeah.
And so I think that's my hang up with it. But I love all the things about the game in terms of just like being in the world. I love hearing the music, and then running by armor, and like the armor turns and looks at you, and like
exactly. Yeah.
To me, like that's cool. Like the pianos are playing by themselves, or just ghosts flying around. Like to me, I'm like, oh, this is Hogwarts. Like this is cool.
All the secret rooms and all the little puzzles you could do and stuff like that. I agree.
I've even like went into some bathrooms and like, where's the Chamber of Secrets at? You know, like I mean, I know it's there. I know I saw someone say there is there, but like I would have done that even if I hadn't saw it online, because I know the books. Like I've been like, there's Chamber of Secrets in there somewhere.
Yes.
So like to me, that is the fun part of it. And it's making me want to play it now. But I agree. I think for Harry Potter, this would have been like a 10 out of 10 for me. And again, there's a reason why I haven't been picking it up. I just haven't nailed it. Maybe this is it. A 10 out of 10 if the story was like next level. Star Wars, the story doesn't have to be next level, because I love that world so much.
Yes.
I think it'd be cool if you were like a Mandalorian that had force powers. And so you were like, you're a bounty hunter, but then you were like also discovering force powers as you were going.
We just need, and I think we are going to get some of these, because I know Ubisoft is working on an open world Star Wars game. I know Respawn, who did the Titanfall games, is working on some sort of Star Wars game. I don't know if it's open world, but
Respawn is Jedi Survivor Fallen Order.
Yeah, but I think they're working on another one.
Oh,
they're working on 2. Yes, Fallen Order or Survivor is about to come out Friday, which I'm so pumped about. But
next week,
I think this week, it's this Friday.
Well, I'm playing it next week.
I'm
getting married on Friday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Last pod is a single man, officially at least. Yeah. So yeah, it's this thing of like, I don't know. Like, if you think about all the fucking Assassin's Creed we've gotten, and so many of them are like, you go to Greece, you go to Egypt, you go to Vikings in England, and they just pump them out like nothing. And I'm just like, and I think this is probably what we're getting, just especially because Disney decided to give the license to more people than EA, because EA just fucked it up a few times. It's this thing of like, give me a bounty hunter game that's just a bounty hunter game where it's Hitman in Star Wars world. You're a bounty hunter. You go get missions. You go to different planets. You can tackle it in any way you want. You've got all these gadgets. I mean, like,
there's so much money to make.
Then probably what I prefer is a Star Wars open world Jedi game set in like the Old Republic or set before the Empire. Give it to me when like there's much more interesting shit to look at and much more Jedi to encounter. I don't know, like I just feel like if they gave us that with the same level of quality they've been putting out Odyssey games, those would just not stop selling. I feel like.
No, I agree. I'm looking up right. I'm looking at right now how many sales did like how many sales did Jedi? Oh, it's Fallen Order. I keep doing Survivor. That's why there's no data yet because that hasn't come out yet. It sold 10 million copies by 2020. Yeah, I mean that's a
which one was this?
The first one, Fallen Order.
Okay.
For Respawn. So like typically a game, if it sells like 4 to 5, it's like in my opinion considered like a rousing success because if there's 60 million a pop and that's 5 million copies, that's $300 million. And like an expensive game is like 60 to 80 to $100 million. That's like an absurdly expensive game.
Yes. So here, real quick. Yeah. I'll just tell you, I was looking up what actual games we have coming. So we have a Quantic Dream Star Wars Eclipse game that's in development. The guys that did Heavy Rain and those other like
dude, that sick trailer we got at the Game Awards. Yeah, I remember that game. Yeah.
So we have a untitled Star Wars FPS that is Respawn. So that's in addition to Survivor because they're already making Survivor. We have an untitled Star Wars strategy game, untitled Star Wars open world game from Ubisoft Massive. The title is supposed to feature an original story and is being developed in Ubisoft's own Snowdrop engine. Yes, so that's the one that I think has the highest chance to be what we're talking about, like a Star Wars Legacy video game. Then we have another Star Wars action adventure game from Skydance New Media, which that is Amy Hennig is writing that one. Who is Amy Hennig is famous from Uncharted and I think a few other things. So that's what we know is coming. What's been announced is coming. So I am hoping that we're on like a new, like the early 2000s into some of the like the early mid 2000s, like was like a beautiful time for Star Wars gamers. There were so many games coming out.
Dude, it's
amazing and still heralded as some of the best in their genre today. That's not even mentioning the Knights of the Old Republic remake that's coming. So anyway, I'm hopeful we're on a renaissance of Star Wars gaming. Like, because I'm all here
it's something I forget about the time period where we just had game after game. Like, I mean, I loved the pod racing game from the N64. Yes. That game was fucking rad. You can actually buy it now on the Switch. Like it just came out again last year, I believe,
for like $10. I think a bunch of old Star Wars games. Jedi Knight Survivor, which was a PC game. I think it came out on like Xbox, but I played it on PC. Jedi Padawan, or it was like Jedi Academy, which is like the sequel to that one. Those are I think are on Switch for like $10.
You're right. I kind of forget sometimes that EA. They were kind of hogging the license for a little bit and also squandering it. I mean, I think they put out 2 games in 8 years.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I think, Respawn is EA, and I think the Star Wars Squadrons. So I think maybe they did 3, but 3 games in like 5 or 6 years is, and especially when 2 of them were not successes critically or sales.
You're talking about Battlefront, correct? 1 and 2. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think they sold pretty well. I don't think they sold as well as they were expecting, considering the IP, but I think they still sold better than EA. Also has like, I think, don't quote me, unrealistic expectations for every game they ever make.
Oh, yeah. It's because they make games like FIFA that have Ultimate Team, which are literally just money machines. So they think everything should be a money machine. It was the thing of like, Star Wars Battlefront 1 just didn't have a story. And I actually really loved the multiplayer. It was very arcadey and fun. And then the second one had all of that. It's got the whole thing about like it had all this Reddit drama. Like it was like how they had set it up to like unlock Darth Vader. Someone had calculated it that like you would have to play like 80 hours to unlock Darth Vader in a Star Wars game. And they had that comment that was like, the intention was to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment. And that comment became the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. It had like over 300,000 downvotes on one comment was like from the developer.
I didn't
Oh
know
man,
that.
it was like it was like you'll see this all the time now on Reddit. Just people being like, "That's for the sense of pride and accomplishment." Like it's become a meme
Now,
just because of
got you.
like
Now I
how
know.
poorly they handled that. So,
That's funny. Well, just looking here at the numbers, Battlefront 2 made or sold 10.53 million copies, which seems successful. I mean, I bought it,
yeah, I mean they made money.
after it was cheaper,
They made their
after it
money
was
back
cheaper. Yeah.
easily. Yep.
And I also played Rogue Squadron, but I also just couldn't even though I thought that game was like made for
Squadrons,
me,
is that the one?
the new one, whatever the new one was.
Yeah,
Um,
Squadrons. Yeah.
I played it in VR and regular, and I just couldn't get into either one really.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it was. I mean, it's. I love that it's a sim, and then like you can like look around in the like it's exactly like the X-wing is, and you can like actually
Yeah.
use the readouts to fly if you want. I just think that's so amazing. I never got to try it in VR, and I think like the only way I would really enjoy it is like in a VR with like a legit like one of those
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
pilot
Yeah.
setups that people like practice
Yeah.
actual flying on. If you could
Yeah.
do it
I
on
agree.
that with VR, it's like, oh man, that sounds yeah.
That sounds like the
Again,
prime timeline, the best timeline.
that's just me living out like all of my little imagination adventures I had as a kid, but in a video game where it's doing a lot of the imagination work for me. So
No, I agree. I agree. That would be the best version of that game, I think. And I played it in
absolutely.
VR, and it kind of made me sick actually. And 3D VR, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff doesn't make me sick, but that one kind of did actually.
Well, and it may be a thing of where that game really needs a few more years of VR development to be in perfect state. Because I agree, even like playing on the Oculus, it's like you can only stay in there so long, and looking at like fine details is not how you should do it. Like trying to like look at pixels and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that makes me feel sick. And
Well, I think it was like when I of course was like in a X-wing or a
sure.
TIE fighter, and I was there and I would start spinning, looking into space, and there's no orientation to like
Yeah.
where because you're in space, spinning,
Yeah.
flying, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like you're
That was a problem. That was a problem for me just playing normally on the TV screen. It's just like it was.
Yeah.
I think that the one thing with that game is this: you had to be pretty good to be good. You know what I mean? Like the people
Yeah,
that were
I
good
agree.
were like fucking Red Bear and Ace pilots. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
and like so it was like if I wanted to be good and like compete and have fun, I would need to devote so much time to practice, and that's just not
It's
where
hard
I'm
to
going
do
to spend
that.
that much
Yeah,
time.
it's hard to do
Yeah.
that. But saying this out loud is making me now want to go buy a VR so I can play the Darth Vader Immortal episode 1, 2. I think
Oh,
maybe 3 also.
don't you still have PSVR?
I gave it back to Matt. I let him have it back, but that's only I don't think you can get those for PSVR. It's only for Oculus or
Okay.
it's not for Sony. But I did play it on the Oculus like episode 2 partly, and like I had so much fun doing doing force powers and a lightsaber in a 3D Star Wars world. That was incredible. So like now I need to go back and do that again. But anyway,
Yes,
um clearly we've been watching and playing a lot.
indeed.
And I'm very curious to see where Jedi Survivor falls because I've been wanting to play Fallen Order again. I thought about today, like I'm gonna play Fallen
Yeah.
Order again before Survivor comes out. But it's also like I'm not a huge fan of Souls games, and so
Yeah,
I just
sure.
don't know if I like that kind of system. And I've stayed away from every trailer from Fallen or
Yeah,
Survivor, and even the gameplay. I don't know what the gameplay looks like.
sure.
I'm hoping it's just better than I enjoyed Fallen Order in the end. I hope it's just a better
Yeah,
version of that
I
and
agree.
maybe less Souls like, but probably not. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree though. I think I beat Fallen Order, which I don't beat a lot of games, so it's something. And I enjoyed it, but I did feel like the exploration wasn't very great. There was never really anything interesting to find. Oh, a pink poncho. Cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just beat this big giant battle, and that's all I got out of this. The story though was pretty good, and like the locations were great, and like getting to build your lightsaber and that kind of progression was great. I thought the force powers worked pretty well. So I mean, I imagine that all of that should be better. I didn't think the combat, it wasn't as good as a Souls game. It wasn't as precise as like what you get. Like it felt like, well, I dodged right here, but I seem to have dodged the same time, but it didn't work this time. Kind of like stuff,
I agree.
inconsistencies and stuff like that. And so I'm expecting that to be better. I would love some like I want to be able to like go to a planet with a city on it. You know what I mean? I want some like NPCs. I would love like side quest options type stuff rather than just collecting random like collectibles.
Thinking about it, it did feel every planet you're on was
Empty.
jungly or kind of empty or like concrete or water.
The only one
or,
that wasn't was Kashyyyk, and you got to see like Saw Gerrera, and you saw the rebels, and
Which
you
is
saw like
cool.
good Wookiee. Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to have some more like stuff that is, yeah. Anyway, so I'm pumped. I'm gonna buy it and play it probably this weekend, day one, and so it's exciting. I mean, I think
we may be doing a pod on it then. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
We don't
that's
ever
true.
do game pods. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, and I would say too, it's like it is some of the best lightsaber combat we've gotten just in general, and like third person. I feel like while it had its moments, also just like the way the animations looked, how he moved with it, and all that kind of stuff was great. And getting to run around in a world with a lightsaber will never not be fun. So,
did you play Force Unleashed 1 and 2?
Yes, I did. I beat those. Yep.
Yeah, I thought the first one was like I liked the story a lot, and it felt like
I
it
did
fit
too.
inside the canon.
Yeah.
Episode 2 was kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Story wise,
Yeah.
its combat got better because it's typically they
Yes.
always do in games like that. But
Yes.
I was kind of bummed out by the story in 2, and then obviously
Yes.
everyone else was too, 'cause they had to make a third one.
Yeah, there's been rumors that his name was Starkiller, wasn't it? In the games,
played by Sam Witwer.
Is funny because there was a Starkiller in the lore, in the extended canon, in the legends, that was much cooler than him. He was also a Jedi, but like it was a whole different thing. But
well, that was Luke's first original name, and in the script was Starkiller.
Yes, yeah,
and they actually recorded it as Starkiller. They ADR'd Skywalker.
That's hilarious.
like half the movie. Yeah.
That's funny. Anyway, yeah, there's been rumors that like who's going to show up in this game because it's set in between Rogue One and, well, I think between Rogue One and A New Hope. It may be between more like Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One. But it's in that window. It's like in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. And so it will be interesting who could show up. I mean, they're looking, we left them looking for Jedi. Right. And like there weren't a lot. We're pretty clear there was not a lot around at this time. Ahsoka was around, Luke was around, like who else beyond that? And so I'm very curious to just what is this story? Are they trying to connect it to the larger Star Wars universe? How well did they do that? Etc. Right.
I think it's what I'm most curious about is how they're going to, if and how they're going to connect it and make it feel important to the lore.
Because here's the thing. Cal Kestis is a really cool character and one that could be so easily brought into live action. I mean, they literally mocap the guy that plays him, and he's a great actor. And it's like it's just an easy, okay, we're gonna hire him and he's gonna have a part in this movie. You know what I mean? Like it, or in like the Ahsoka show, like it would be a natural place for him to potentially show up.
I think that's where I hope he is that show.
Yeah, because I just think there weren't many Jedi out like looking for other Jedi at the time. And so, yeah, I'm curious, like, does his character live? Is he theoretically alive in the modern timeline? I don't know. I mean, I hope so, because he's a cool Jedi character and there aren't enough alive of them in the modern timeline. There aren't enough of them alive, but yeah, it'll be really curious, like, how it connects, if it connects to the larger world. Is this also a place where Disney is trying to fix some of the, the problems with some of the past movies? We'll see. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I'm hopeful too. I suspect he'll live on and he'll probably conclude his story in the Mandoverse in some way for fan service and also just to kind of pump up those game sales. I mean, that kind of stuff, it only helps itself if you stick the landing.
And it's not like he has to be this, like, he doesn't have to be this, like, crazy, like, we don't have to focus on him in the stories. Like, he can just show up at a big battle. And it's like, cool, you want to know about him? Go play the games. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And like, wait, I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't do that, just because of, like, we've seen with PlayStation and The Last of Us, like, if you put your game characters in live action, both of them sell better. You know what I mean? The games sell more. People want to watch the show more. It just seems like, why wouldn't they?
I can see the countless YouTube videos created, but also I see the actual promotional social media posts from Disney saying like, oh, Cameron McGonagall was in this week's episode of Ahsoka here's a link to go buy the game, or here's a
Yeah,
picture of the
exactly.
game.
I
You know what I'm
mean,
saying? I could totally see that
absolutely. I mean,
social
like
post. It's gonna happen.
it would probably sell consoles even like so, like people that are into Star Wars be like, oh, like this is a character in the world now that I like, and now I can like go play his backstory.
Yep.
Like, yes, like who
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do that? Like, yes. So
That's like the next level of the MCU that I think James Gunn is trying to do with the
with the DC,
DCU,
yeah,
but I think that he's going to have a harder time doing it than he thinks. Disney is
yeah,
accidentally doing it with Star Wars right now, but they have the opportunity
yeah,
to tie it all together in a meaningful way. But we'll see. Um, yeah, I mean, let's kind of talk about just a couple of interesting news things. We can kind of
yes,
hop off here. This week, of course, is Cinemacon up in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace. And if you don't know what Cinemacon is, listeners, viewers, whatever you are, it's basically like and what its name is, it's a Cinemacon, right? It's a con focused on showing theaters and their vendors. Here are the movies that you're going to be able to show in your theater for the next
oh.
year. So
So it's really more of a industry con than a fan con.
100%. Yeah,
Okay,
100%. There are people that go in that are considered quote unquote press that are fans.
sure.
But it's typically a place that you go and people are wearing button up shirts, and I'm saying like
Oh
it's
wow,
not,
okay.
you don't cosplay at this place, right? And
But
it's
we should go and we should cosplay,
yes,
and we should be those people. Because
100%.
I get there is someone at least every year that does
Oh,
do
there
it.
has to
You know
be
what I mean?
some
There
people,
is
yeah.
there that one guy, and we could be
Yeah,
those. We could be those two guys.
we could be those two guys. You get two for one actually. And
That's
then
right.
but the big thing is it's there to kind of partly for the theaters to pat themselves on the back, and also for the
Mm,
distributors and the companies who make these movies to make them feel good about their movie they're making, and like, hey, you're going to be okay in December because Aquaman 2 comes out, kind of thing. So
right, right.
it's a way to kind of
Which
schmooze with the
have no
vendors.
one
And
led with that because I doubt that would be true. So
I don't know. I mean, the last one made $1 billion, so that actually may be like a shining light for theaters for December this year.
maybe, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
maybe Jason Momoa can pull in. I mean, I'm sure he's going to pull in a lot of people just on his own. But I think it will be interesting to see how that movie is recepted in theoretically a dead universe. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's got a lot of things working against it. A, dead universe. B, post pandemic.
Yeah.
It's been also been 4 or 5 years since Aquaman 1, which is like also bad.
The rumor is
So
that it keeps tanking in test audiences, which who
which is
knows if that's
bad.
true. But I
Yeah,
mean,
which is
usually there's
also
some smoke where there's fire, kind of
yeah,
thing.
and what's weird about test audience stuff is that not weird, but typically if it does really well in a test audience, it almost that doesn't mean it's amazing. It means that people there got swag and they got to watch a movie with maybe a
Right.
cast member showing up introducing the movie.
And they
And
usually, I
like,
feel like, try to find such a wide variety of like representing a wide variety of age groups and like
yeah,
types of people that if it's testing amazing, it sounds like it's like, well, everyone will like it, which means at the end of the day, it might not be it might be like kind of just fine and not amazing because it's no one's offended by it when they get out of
yeah.
it. You know what I mean? It's all the demographics are okay with it, which means it's testing well. You know
Right.
what I
Well,
mean?
I never really talked. I don't know if I'm not sure I've ever talked to you about this or anyone really, but one of the things whenever Mission Impossible Fallout was coming out,
Yeah.
or when I was at Skydance being an intern there, a low level intern, um, there was like a screening in their home theater in Skydance that was just for social media influencers, and they had like a little red carpet and like a little step and repeat
Sure.
inside, something like that. And they had like a table of like of swag and
Sure.
like of goodie bags, and they would bring people in and they were taking photos in front of this like step and repeat. And if like you turn the camera like left, you would see like the bullpen of the interns. And
Right.
like
Right.
it's cool office because there's cool movie stuff in there, but it's an office. It's not like a red
Yeah.
carpet outside.
Right.
And I remember doing some like getting drinks and that kind of stuff ready or
Sure.
something for it. But I was like, I don't have no idea who any of these people are. And they're
Right.
supposed to be social media influencers, and they're obviously doing it. The movie ended up being great, like it really
Sure.
well on all accounts, critically and commercially. But it's like, it just feels kind of icky and gross. But every studio does this, right? And they do this they're in anyway. That's
Yeah.
kind of the nature of that kind of business there. But this week is Cinemacon in Las Vegas, and so we're getting a little bit of information. We're kind of middle of Cinemacon, so we don't have all the deets. But a couple cool things have already come out that we can talk about, and maybe we can talk about some other things next week if they're cool. Later today, we have the Flash screening going on, which we'll get some first reactions from
Actually,
that.
I think it might be happening right now.
It could be happening right now. I think it's 3 p.m. Central is when it
Oh,
airs.
I thought you said 1 p.m. Sorry.
What's when the trailer drops? The new trailer drops, I think, around 1 or so. We have that happening, which that'll be a big talking point. But
Sure.
Sony already had their press conference yesterday, and one of the things, this kind of tells you all you need to know about the CinemaCon. One of the things Sony said in their conference was just so you know, Sony Pictures was the only distributor of movies that was solely theatrical, and we didn't do any type of direct to video release or whatever, and coinciding with the pandemic and stuff. And so that's what this is for. This festival is for the vendors to strengthen relationships with those and to be like, here's what you're playing, here's what you should promote, those kind of things. And so it's not really a festival or a con that's showing new footage, or it's not a Hall H in Comic-Con. But we did learn about Kraven the Hunter, a little bit about that, and basically it's announced that it's Sony's first R-rated Marvel movie, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, and also the Rhino is an antagonist in it, or the antagonist, don't quite know yet.
Interesting.
A little bit of footage was shown, nothing crazy. They said a trailer would drop in June of that, but it's also, there's no news on Venom 3, no news on Spider-Man 4. A little bit of they showed the first 14 minutes of Across the Spider-Verse, and which drops early June. That drops in 40 days actually. Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, as far as the Sony universe of Marvel characters, or whatever they call it, Spidey universe of Marvel characters.
Sure.
I don't know if we ever asked for a Kraven the Hunter movie. I know I would love to see him as an antagonist against Spider-Man.
Right.
I don't know if I wanted to see a full movie a la Morbius.
No, and they don't have a good track record with these offshoot evil character things. No.
Oh man,
dude.
I
mean, but also the Venoms,
you gotta watch
and
it.
then that, and then this. It just is I mean, I know they've been doing. I mean, I doubt Morbius did super well commercially, but I think the first two Venoms at least did pretty well at the box office.
Yeah, Venom 1 did amazing. Venom 2 did really well considering the pandemic.
Yeah. So they've got an audience. I don't understand how or who these people are, or where they live, or where they come from, or how they think. I don't understand anything about them. I'm continually I'm more and more convinced they may be aliens, that they're beaming down just for the opening weekends. So I mean, it's this thing of I mean, I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think Kraven the Hunter is a pretty interesting villain for Spider-Man. He's not just he has more reasons for why he does things, you know what I mean? He's not just I'm an evil guy, I do evil shit. But yeah, I'm just unless the reviews are just oh my god, I probably won't see this at theaters either. You know what I mean? It's just they haven't proven to me that they're good enough to do anything interesting enough for me with just those characters. So
I agree. And I can only again imagine Kevin Feige's ass aching every time Amy Pascal or Sony makes an announcement about whatever movie they're trying to make. They're also, they already shot it a couple months ago. They finished, but Madam Web, the movie.
Oh, wow. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. And the rumored plot of that is that it's, traditionally you would think probably, I would assume, Daniel, Madam Web from the 90s animated Spider-Man, where she's basically like Aunt May. Yes. In a dimension with spider webs. Well, later on they kind of made it. I think it's Jessica Drew, but she's basically young. She's got red sunglasses and a red, red coat, a la what's that PC?
Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah, dude. How'd you know? Fuck yeah!
I don't know why. I just
fucking read that one. Yeah, so she looks like Carmen Sandiego, basically the new version. So I think it's like this, but it's Madam Web going across some universe or something and trying to protect a young Peter Parker before someone kills him
Which
or
Peter
something.
Parker are we talking about? That's going to be so is it
That's a
Tom
good
Holland Peter?
question.
Is it a totally different one?
It won't
Interesting.
be. There's no way it'll be Tom Holland's Peter Parker.
Was there not rumors that he was going to appear in the movie, or like that was part of the negotiation? I thought I
I
remembered
don't know.
that.
I mean, he was supposed to be in. Uh, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I think Tom Holland shot stuff for Morbius for Venom 2, but they took it out. I think from Kevin Feige's request.
Gotcha.
So I don't know, but just a little context. So that's that movie. There's really nothing announced about that. Who cares? Also, but cool thing is not cool thing. Just some context here. Morbius made $170 million, which is not great, but it made 50 million more than Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, man, that movie got so screwed by so many different
Dude.
angles. I mean,
I
they
watched it again
they
recently.
didn't open in a good. I mean, like the opening against what Avatar was not a great idea. But
Avatar on its 10th week of release or
okay,
12th
maybe
week
that
of release.
was there another big movie that came out right before it that was like,
I don't remember. I mean,
like
John Wick happened right around the
yeah, that
time.
may have been
Scream
that.
Six. I mean, well, John Wick.
John Wick would have. I bet a lot of people that would have picked John Wick over that one. That
it ate
may have gone
into
to
its
both.
box office for sure. I can't remember what
Yeah.
was happening. I know Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons was happening same time.
Yeah,
Which
that
is
one didn't do well
great.
either, though.
No,
On
dude,
box office.
I really liked it a lot actually. No, Shazam. I want you to watch something, talk about
I
it,
want
but
to. I mean, I like the first one a lot.
it's yeah, it's the first and the second one's fun.
Just
Like
seems
it's
right up that
not.
alley. I mean, like if
I
you're
don't.
expecting
Yeah,
what the first one was, it should be that essentially.
yeah.
The two on the
I
end.
don't know. Which kind of brings me to my next question. Let's switch over to DC here and kind of wrap all this up. But
Yeah,
did you watch the Blue Beetle trailer?
I did. Yep.
It's like it was originally slated for HBO Max, and so was Batgirl.
Right.
Batgirl got bumped through to theatrical when David Zaslav first come on, and then it ended up getting canceled / shelved. And then Blue
Was that the
Beetle
one they were in
was
the middle of filming when it got canceled, or it got done? It was already done, and then it got
Batgirl
like.
was they were editing Batgirl
That's
when it
right.
got canceled. Which
Wow.
had Brendan Fraser and Michael Keaton as Batman in it.
Which it's like, I guess the whole thing was like, Michael Keaton was in it. Wow.
As Batman.
So I guess it's the whole thing of like it's a bigger tax break by counting it as a loss than it would be potential profit from putting it out. I'm assuming
That was the thing that and they also said things like the movie wasn't very good at all, and so we're going to
I
save the brand.
believe
I don't
that a bit. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe partly.
If it was supposed to be an HBO direct movie, I just think there's a reason that it isn't in theaters.
Yeah, and I think there was supposed to be additional 5-10 million or 20 million needed for like reshoots and some visual effects, kind of like they were trying to pump it up a little bit more than it was. But if you have Michael Keaton, and then also you got to think Brendan Fraser on his Renaissance, he's also now
What was he
Academy
playing?
Award winning. He was playing Firefly, the main bad guy.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And so you do all that, like you're going to turn
Right.
you're at least going to make back your $80 million investment, I would think. I mean, it's a Batman movie. Also,
Probably.
you're going to make at least $200 million, probably. And if a Morbius can make 170,
Right.
a Batman movie can make at least 200. But that's a whole other conversation.
Sure.
So back to Blue Beetle. What do you think about it? I mean, and keep in mind, this is a thing that's like James Gunn has said that Shazam leads into the Flash, and the Flash resets everything, and then Blue Beetle's after that, and then like he's being very wishy-washy in terms of these things could be in the universe, and they don't negate them. It feels like he's saying that to like not hurt the box office of the movies, but they're not really part of the universe anymore. But I don't know.
First of all, I think James Gunn is talking too much. He just needs to shut up and work. Let the work. Like I don't know. I think the amount he responds to fans, like while part of me likes it, part of me also is like, I don't know, man. Like I just feel like don't give a fuck about them. Do your thing and let your work show you everything. Because it feels like there's like a new quote every week about what he's saying about this or that or this, or like, oh, this is canon, this isn't that. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like it's a thing of like, I'm kind of tired of hearing about any of it. I just want to see it. And so, but yeah, so Blue Beetle, I think it looks like it could be good. I mean, I think trailers are always hard to really get a sense of what it's like completely.
Yeah.
I have no knowledge of the character at all.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
going
have
to be a
next to none.
complete blank slate coming in there. He reminded me a little bit of like the Beetleborgs, I think a little bit. Just maybe it's just because it's a beetle and he has a suit that has like kind of a bug aesthetic.
Yeah.
But
Beetleborgs are
anyway,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, I am if it's get good reviews and it's kind of a sign that like, yeah, it's good, I'm sure I'll see it. And especially if it eventually comes to HBO Max, I'm sure I'll watch it. Just
Whoa, Daniel.
thing.
Don't you mean Max here in just a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I guess I do. I guess I do.
Yeah. I think it's May 25th. We're getting
Are they
the
gonna
new
keep like
Max.
the HBO title for their like premium shows or anything? Like that would make sense if they're like, this is
I think
Max, but
so.
if you want HBO content, The Sopranos, The Wire, Succession, like
Well,
that would seem to be like giving away a very respected name in terms of like who did this show. Well, it's the HBO, it's the HBO like production
remember
department or something.
the ad for the announcement I shared with you and Travis, and it said introducing Max, the
Yes,
one to watch for HBO.
that's their slogan
That's the slogan.
for the whole.
Max, the one to watch for HBO. Here, I'll have it right here. I
That
found
that
it.
just seems like
I'm going to send it to you right now so you can see the ad. There you go.
that's
Introducing
wow.
Max, the one to watch for HBO.
Man, they honestly, it's like you guys are doing worse than Xbox at this point almost. Like
That's saying
Xbox
something.
One, Xbox all I mean it's just like it's just and it I don't know, man. I mean
There's
interesting.
I don't see any logical reason to say Max other than the ego behind Discovery saying, well, if
We're
we put
not
HBO
yeah.
Max, that means that Discovery's not that important, and
Well,
like
because it's
Discovery need
not. It's a bunch of like Animal Planet shows and reality
yeah,
shows. And like
yeah.
let's maybe this is just my opinion, but I do think that like the human race would be as good or better without reality TV. And
Right.
so, it's this kind of like, no, Discovery, you are not as cool as you want to pretend you are. Sorry.
Well, I think also it's yeah, it's just poor. It's a poor idea. And you would think for a streaming service, you would want to lead with your best hand, and and that your hand then is the brand HBO, because that's synonymous with great or amazing television. And I
Yes,
get that you don't want to forget, like there's tons of people out there who would infinitely rather watch reality TV shows and
sure.
those kind of things over anything HBO. And I get that, and it's valid, whatever. But I think in what I would call quote unquote the streaming wars, you don't you don't sacrifice your lead player for
No.
ego. And I feel like that's the ego move, or some I don't know. I don't know what it
Yeah,
was.
it's weird. Honestly, Warner Brothers feels like they're a bit of a mess leadership wise, just kind of across things. I mean, obviously the DCU seems to be steadying a bit because of Gunn and the other guy, but like even, we haven't mentioned it, but like the upcoming game, Justice League or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is
Yeah,
Rocksteady's follow-up to the award-winning 2015 game Arkham Knight. They have not made a game
20.
since 8 years. They haven't made a game.
There's
And this
no
is the
way
first
like
one
this
that's
game can
coming
make
out.
enough money, right? That
No,
like
but I mean, it's gotten canceled to next. It's gotten pushed to next year because
yeah,
like the
I saw
vitriol
that.
that came out. It's a looter shooter. It's a Destiny like.
Well, as it
All of the
should be.
characters
Like
use guns.
yeah,
King Shark
and then
doesn't do anything but use a gun. Like it's like it was just like walking around shooting things. It was nothing like the old Arkham games, like
yeah,
action
and to be
adventure open world
fair,
stuff.
I don't think it should have been those. If you have like the Suicide Squad, I am surprised to hear that none of the characters felt different, which is wild that you would spend that much time or have that many. It looked like their traversal was different. The things I saw that was horrible was it was trying to be like a games of service, which now I feel like
Yes,
even since in the last year we've been talking about how awful those were. The idea, I feel like now they're all crumbling except for the ones that
good.
are already baked in, like
Yes,
Fortnite and
Yes.
whatever else, League of Legends, whatever. I don't know. I don't
The
know. I'm pretty
the
sure-
bubble's getting close to maybe popping with the
I think it's
everyone wants a
yeah.
games as a service thing. Yeah.
I think the Air is coming out, yeah, at least, and that, and also you had to have an internet connection to play the game, to play Suicide Squad, and so I think
Yeah. Well, it's
there were
just
yeah,
it's
which
one
is
of those
awful
always on.
idea.
I mean, it's like Destiny. It's like you're just going to be doing the same mindless like things over and over to grind loot to up this level, and I think for one, you're right. Maybe that is the best way to do a Suicide Squad movie. But then my counter argument would be then don't do a fucking Suicide Squad game. Rocksteady. This is not your bread and butter. This is not what you're good at. This is not what you're known for. You're known for like really interesting open worlds with a lot of good exploration. I mean, you invented the modern action the action adventure combat like that Spider-Man has, that like all of these other games copied because you did it.
Lord of the Rings has
Exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. And so like you are really good at making really beefy, chunky single player games in these like kind of comic booky worlds. Like that is what you are. And then it just feels like this like executive level decision of, well, they just hired a new executive and their job is to make more money. Like, hey, look, AEA's got, their games as a service shit, whether it's like, what's that shooter that everyone's playing? The one in the Respawn universe, or the one in the Titanfall universe that's big, Apex Legends, or your Destiny, and you've got Destiny, like these big, essentially games that print money, right? They really do. And they're like, well, who's our best developer? And well, would be, well, Rocksteady. Well, now they're going to have to make a money printing game. That's what we want. And it's like, it just screams of like executives so out of touch of like what their people are good at. And it's just like, it just screams of just batshit bad management. You know what I mean? Like from the top down. And it just
feel like
feels like, except for DC right now, where it feels like they've just given someone else the keys. That's like, doesn't feel like James or the other guy answer to many other people. It's like, other than that, it just feels like a mess everywhere. And of course, some of it's happening because all these mergers and layoffs and like, I mean, there's been people that have worked there for like 20 years that got just laid off, you know what I mean? Because their position became redundant because the other company had one too, and they get to stay because of who knows why. But yeah, it is a thing of like, wow. I mean, like those Rocksteady games were probably some of my favorite games. I mean, Arkham City is like one of my favorite games of all time. And
amazing.
And Arkham Knight, I don't think is as good, but it's still really good. It's like to follow that up with this is just like baffling. It just is like, I don't see who thought this through, or that like, it's like, it was made as like, oh, this could make more money if it's successful. Not this is what the gamers want from us.
I think it's a couple of things. I'm not quite sure. I don't think David Zaslav is to blame for this because this is way before his tenure.
I think maybe yes.
And I think the games and service thing was like a phenomenon that happened, but then also the reality that it's like making a new technology and then being one of the first or second ones to copy it, and then like after that happens, it's almost impossible. It feels like to break in.
Yeah, right.
Because consumers only have, especially with games as service, only so much time. It's a similar problem with streaming. Like there's only so much hours a day to watch content, but games as service is even more taxing on the consumer because not only are you paying constantly to get more stuff, you're playing something which is more time than it is to consume
and
something.
The only way those games work is like Destiny, where the people that play Destiny, that's all they play.
That's all they do.
That's all they do. And like, that's not most of gamers. That's a subsection. No. And if you get, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's 1 million people that only play Destiny and every year dish out hundreds of dollars to Bungie for it. And that's a really, like, if you do the math, that's a lot of money. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, it really is this thing of like, there can only be so many successful games and services because there's only so many people that want to play gaming like that.
Well, there's also only so many people on the planet.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I feel like the people that only want to play one game ever is a minority of gamers. Like that isn't most gamers. At least most gamers have like 3 or 4 they at least play. But like, if you want to be current at the current highest level with the best gear there is and like all this kind of shit, you got to
Yeah.
play like every day.
Well,
You
it's
know?
also, again, it's there's a couple factors here also playing to it. One is that you have to come into, I think, a games of service being more complete of a game than most games are now. And
Mhm.
that means like most games coming out on a day one patch, and then there's like another patch a couple weeks later,
Mhm.
and they're just not like where it was like 10 years ago, where like when the game come out, and then you were judged by that.
Mhm.
Now it's like you're judged once, then you're judged another time a year later. Like look at
Yeah.
Cyberpunk example. We judged the hell out
Yep.
of it the first 24 hours, but now it's being judged again in other forums
Yep.
and articles, that kind of
It's
stuff
got
too. And
DLC coming out this year,
yeah,
I
those
think,
kind
or
of,
the
yeah,
beginning of next year,
exactly. And I'll
which looks
probably pick it
Idris
up.
Elba's in it.
Yeah, I'll
And
probably pick it up then.
it also looks like they're going to be putting a lot of the features that we thought were coming with the real game with that potentially. I've heard,
exactly. So
which
it's
is
like
great.
games are allowed to have like a second lease of life
Yeah.
now, if they can turn the ship around. But the games as service, though, it's like you have to be so good in the first 6 months.
Yes.
Like in an example of that is Avengers, where the content ran out
Yes.
in the first 3 weeks. And it's
Yes.
like the biggest IP in the world right now, but it didn't
Yes.
help. It didn't matter because they didn't prepare
Right.
for the system that games and services require in terms of
Right.
consumer market buy-in.
Anthem was another recent example of that exact same
Yes.
thing. Of a, like
It's BioWare. It's
right
BioWare.
out the gate, it was half finished. And you're right. You do. I mean, like it's interesting because like Bungie was the first people to do this and they didn't do that, but that's like basically the only reason they didn't have to. Like when Destiny 1 came out, that was the first time we had a games as a service like that ever, right? And it did kind of come out with like,
yeah.
okay, that's half a game. And it took like a year or two for the people that loved it to be like, oh wow, this is amazing now. You know what I mean? But like since then, you're right. Like, I mean, Destiny feels like it'll always be there just because it was the first one there, right? And they do
Yeah.
kind of have that classic Bungie. I mean, it feels like playing Halo when you play Destiny. I don't know if you've ever played it, but it feels like Halo
I've
in a
played it
really
little, yeah.
great way. And so, and the world is interesting enough. But like, you're right. Like for anyone to come out and take new ground, because it feels like there's not much new ground left. Like, if there are any unconquered like people that aren't that want to play like that haven't found it, right? You know, I don't know. Probably not.
Well,
I mean, like, those are the
look
kind of
at
people like
Multiverse.
MMOs as well. You know,
Look at
But-
Multiverse. Remember Multiverses that come out? Remember that
Yep.
game was like it was Warner Brothers. It was a Smash Brothers game.
yeah,
With yeah. I mean, I was excited by the concept of it, and I downloaded it day one and played it. And I had at the time like the most concurrent players in Steam in a very long time, whatever record it done. And then a year later, it just happened like last month, I guess. It's like, okay, everyone, thank you so much for participating in our beta. We really appreciated it. And like we're gonna take all the feedback we got and open up again at a later time. And they may do that, but the reality is it was a games of service. And then B, the reality is that they had lost so many players and lost so much interest in it.
Yeah.
They're using we always said it was a beta. Everything's a beta now.
Yeah.
Right, it's a beta. And like, thank you for contributing to our beta. Now the real game will come out later. If it does or not, who knows? But like that's the mindset these developers are kind of going into now when they're
or at least the
putting out
executives
games
that are behind them. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's not great. And games of service, we talk about that for an hour plus. It's not the end all be all. So I think
but we're getting and I'll just say like this year we're slated to get some amazing non-games of service games. Zelda,
they're coming back.
Spider-Man, Starfield. I mean, those alone are just like some of the most acclaimed single player franchises from some of the most acclaimed developers we have. You know what I mean? So this is a good year for single player games.
Well, I think everyone saw the Fortnite numbers and just lost their mind. And then
exactly.
I think and it still continues to be the biggest thing of all time game wise.
Yeah, I mean Sony bought Bungie because they wanted that, and we do know, which is nervous, especially if you're a big PlayStation fan, that Sony's been talking so much about gearing up for more games as service. Like we're investing more into that. Like that's being a bigger focus for us. And like, that doesn't sound promising to me as a single player mainly game guy.
Well, I feel like, and part of this is the pandemic has kind of skewed the data or skewed the perception a bit.
Right.
And it feels like after these games and services aren't doing as well, or they're trailing off like
Yeah.
you would expect. It feels like we're getting more of the single player experiences again. Because also think about this, games as service takes, I feel like, as long or longer
Yeah.
to build that up, and then you have to maintain it forever
You're never
and keep.
you're never done developing the game.
You're never done. And Fortnite's a great example of something that even though I don't play it, like they
Sure.
continuously change the gameplay and the mechanics and
Yeah.
make it's a different game today than it was 2 years ago where it was when it first came out. It's 100%
And to be
different.
fair with that, like unlike most games and services, you don't have to pay a dime to play modern
No,
why can't I think of the name? Fortnite,
Fortnite.
right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, there is no entry fee for Destiny. You got to pay usually $20 to $40 for the base game, and then if you want to play with your friends that have been playing, you got to pay like $100 just to get all the updates and DLC and all this stuff, so you can like play with them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well,
It'll be
I think
interesting
so.
how it all develops in the next decade or so. I feel like
I
games as a
agree.
service took over last decade and kind of invaded a lot of things. Like battle passes were everywhere and no one liked that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think the bubble has started to pop, and it will be interesting to see, what we get in the next few months, years.
Well, all that to say, tying back to Suicide Squad, I think that's an issue. And then also, it feels like the game was being made and trying to coincide somewhat in the release window of the
Yes.
first Suicide Squad movie.
Yes, I agree. I do think it does seem like they probably made the game twice in 8 years. I don't know how you couldn't have in that much time. I mean,
Yeah.
they made Arkham Knight 3 years after Arkham City. You know what I mean? Like it released
Yeah.
3 years
Well,
after it.
that's
And so
another
it's
benefit of keeping with the solo stuff is that
true.
if you have a good base, you can just kind of you can reinvent the wheel. But look at that example you just made. Like even though the window of development's getting longer because the games are getting more complex,
Yeah.
it's still like you can capitalize on a whole new game and at least sell 5 to 10 million copies versus dwindling after 4 years and continuously
Yeah.
spending resources trying to make
Right.
this game work. So like I don't think games of service is just going to work in the way it's presented right now.
No, and I
But
think
that's
it
why
does
Suicide
matter
Squad
who
is
it's coming from, right? I mean, these guys made some of the most popular single player experiences in gaming ever. Like in terms of people that love these Arkham games, love them. You know what I mean? And for good reason. And it matters that we're getting this from a company that we usually rely on for some of the best in single player experiences. That
Yeah,
is a part of the context that makes it feel it makes the taste more gross in your mouth, right? Because like,
it does.
come on. Like
It
I
does
didn't need
taste
one of
grosser.
these, but you guys did it, y'all. You know what I mean? You betrayed us.
Well, that's another situation where like if they have like carte blanche, right? At that point, they can be like, we can do any DC property we want.
I know.
And
I mean,
everyone's like,
everyone was
oh, they're gonna
begging for
do
Superman.
exactly, they're gonna do Superman. And what do? They do Suicide Squad.
Killed
And
the
it's
Justice
like,
League. You're supposed to kill Superman, I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
And also just a last thing, they delayed the game by like a year or at least like, but I'm just like, what? I don't what can they honestly change that will make the reception markedly better? I mean, like other than like changing the game, like at its core of what it is in so many ways, like it's just like I don't know. It's like I mean, might make a few people more interested, but like it
I
like
don't
almost I
think
could
this is
expect
the
this
last
game never
delay.
coming out in a way, you know?
I don't think it's the last delay. And
No.
that I would have okay, if I would have if the reaction would have been different for different reasons. But
Mm.
since because the reactions is about it being a games and service, the online thing, like basically
Gameplay
just
is all
problems
the
with the
same.
fundamental gameplay. So like now the goalpost of when the release date for them is to change the game, which
Give me another 4
now
years.
which now that's like the modus operandi or whatever. I feel like when they get to December and January, they'll be like, guys, there's no way we can do the things we thought we needed to
Yeah.
do because it's not just like we're pushing out to polish, we're pushing out to change
No,
the game, which means I feel like we're getting at least one more delay after this one, at least.
at least. Yeah, it'll be. I mean, at this point, no one's looking for, at least no one that I've seen on the internet, no one's looking forward to this game. I mean, like
I
they
mean,
have like
not
everything against them in terms of like getting a good marketing beat out of this game. Like I
And
don't.
Gotham Knights come in and just like
Oh yeah, that didn't
it,
help either. That it was just
which
such a
even though
snooze
it's not the
fest.
same developer, it still is tied to
It was still a games
Arkham.
of service. It was still in that line. It had a battle pass. It had
Well, that's not
games of
even the
service
issue.
type things with it.
It's kind of like we talk about or Sony with whatever. It's like, okay, Marvel puts out, Michael Keaton in the as the Vulture,
Sure.
then they use him in Morbius, and it's like, oh, you're kind of souring the Vulture by
Yeah.
putting him
Right.
in your other
Right.
property. So
Yes.
it's like you have these two game developers, they're different universes technically. It's still
Right.
Batman. It's still
Yeah.
you're using an Arkham style. It's the
Well, and didn't
Arkham
Arkham
game.
Knights like followed up directly on Arkham, like Batman's Dead, which I assumed that was picking up like spoilers on the end of Arkham Knight.
It's not. No, Gotham Knights is separate universe than Arkham Knight.
That's stupid.
Suicide Squad is the same universe as the Arkham Knight,
But Batman's alive.
but Batman's alive. That's a good question, Daniel, and that's something that we are curious about.
Interesting.
Which I thought was really fucking weird that Gotham Knights went that
Especially
route.
the way Gotham Knight ended. Like it was such a
Arkham Knight ended.
it was such a I don't know. It seems
The
so
way
final.
Arkham Knight ends is garbage in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
agree. And it's
Which
I
tainted the
didn't
whole
love it either.
trilogy.
So yeah. Anyway, it's WB and specifically Rocksteady have a mountain to climb. They're gonna get anything good out of these releases. So
That's true.
we'll see.
Well, we could talk about the Flash and all the things that means. Right now, DC Studios is doing, literally as we speak, their live panel.
Oh, cool.
I don't see anything super crazy happening. Let me just kind of scroll through here. There's a live feed you can kind of watch. The people upload live information as it's going.
Sure.
Nothing cool. But yeah, I mean, like they're in a couple hours, they're streaming the Flash. They showed Dune Part 2 footage, Furiosa footage,
Cool.
which are both maybe
Furiosa was coming out.
New Superman and Legacy and the Batman Part 2 logos, first Joker 2 footage.
Logos. Okay.
Yeah,
What would
Chris
the
Hemsworth.
the Batman Part 2 logo? Okay.
Yeah, they're talking about Superman script legacy.
And is the Batman the Brave and the Bold? Is that the title of the Batman movie coming out from James Gunn? Is that
think that it's tentative. I mean, I think that is
Okay.
there's no script, there's no one attached to it as we
That's
see
the
it.
idea.
Yeah, I mean, just like also apparently today also. Right here, David Zaslav has seen The Flash 3 times, calls it extraordinary, best superhero movie he's ever seen.
I don't trust. I don't trust executives, CEO dependence on anything
Not
other
at
than
all.
stock prices. Like that's the only
Not at all.
thing that they are built to deal with. So it's like,
Yeah,
but what would you say if it was shit?
that's
You probably say the same thing. So yeah,
probably the same thing. What's interesting though, just in those little things I was looking at, it looks like they're going to talk about the rest of their 10-year plan in the next
okay,
20-30 minutes.
interesting.
Or the next. So we kind of hit this pod at a slightly poor time because we could have had the next 5 years.
This is the perfect thing because now our listeners
Next
can go to
week.
bit.ly/2for1mail and let us know what you wanted us to talk about that we didn't get a chance to. Like highlight, just like fill in the blanks for us.
Yes.
Bring some things up. Maybe we'll talk about it again on the next episode. A little like follow-up section. But yeah, bit.ly/2for1mail. Let us know what you're thinking of Cinemacon. Let us know if there's any really cool announcements you think we should talk about.
And of course, if you can't hit us up at our Bitly, you can always find us in the comments section below, youtube.com/2for1studios, the best place to consume the content. I'm looking forward now to coming back next week. We could talk about this. We could talk about something else. We haven't decided yet. But maybe it's a good time to stop.
Maybe we'll see.
Maybe I will probably have played a good
Especially
15,
if we do
20. I may have beat it, actually. Yeah.
if we do the pod like Wednesday or Thursday, especially.
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah. And then a few days after that, we are getting Guardians of the Galaxy. We're going to see it together.
Yes, so excited.
So we know the week after that, you're going to get the Guardians goodness. And then I don't know what we're talking about after that. So we'll see what.
I mean, Zelda will have come out pretty soon after that. We could talk about. I mean, I'm going to play it.
Yeah. I'm going to hear about you playing it. And
it looks interesting. I mean, like
worse or better than the last one?
Well, I don't know because the problems that I had with the last one, I have no idea if they've addressed. I mean, the trailers have shown us nothing. Essentially, the trailers have shown us like a couple new enemies, and basically the main thing is this new fuse system where you can like pick up like a rock and a stick and you use this fuse power and it turns into like a hammer, or like you pick up like it's weird. It like, and it seems like it's very dynamic. Like you can pick up anything with anything and it will do something. You know what I mean? And but like you can like the stuff they've shown in trailers is like people building vehicles, like fucking Banjo Kazooie nuts and bolts style almost, where you're just
Ooh.
like grabbing trees and then you make a wheel somehow, and like people driving around in these like kind of makeshift like yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like they've definitely doubled down on like trying to create more interesting systems, right? I think all the powers from the first game are there, plus all these new ones that just are kind of like there's infinite possibilities of the ways you could use them, kind of thing. I have no idea if the store will be better or if there will be interesting dungeons, and I'm hoping at the very least this fuse power will allow you to repair your weapons, because like the fact that all weapons broke no matter what just was not a fun gameplay loop for me. Like I never used my best stuff because I was saving it for some big battle that I would never use it on. You know what I mean? It was just like that weird thing of like, well, I got to save my best stuff. And so like at least give me a way to repair my weapons. I'll be happy, but we will see.
They kind of need this win because Nintendo has been dry as fuck in terms of like first party big games. That's like their flagship characters. I mean, they've
Yeah.
DLC aside for like Mario Kart. I mean, there's no Smash in Smash. You know, it's like very little.
No, I
I mean,
they've
like,
been re-releasing stuff. They did the Advanced Wars re-release, which I liked those games as a kid. I might pick it up, but you're right.
cool, but I mean,
No, you're right.
And it did the Metro Prime remaster, which was
Exactly.
amazing. But
Yeah.
again, it's like we need. Also, it's so weird to think about this. Like, fucking the Switch is like 7, 8 years old now.
It is so weird, right? Like it should be I mean, and we've also heard rumors that we're getting a new model this year announced, like around the same time as like the PS5 Pro, which is apparently getting announced this year too. Which both of those, it's like this is the time. Like at this point in the lifetime of the PlayStation and the Xbox, we got the new versions announced. I think like the X Pro,
Which is weird because it's only been 2 years,
and it feels like
nothing's happened.
nothing has much. I mean, Sony has put out more than Xbox, to be fair, but even Sony doesn't feel like they put out a ton. You know what I mean? Compared to like what the early PS4 years were like.
Oh yeah.
And so and then yeah, you're right. The Nintendo's probably putting out a new console, but you've got to think it will just be like a better version of the Switch and completely backwards compatible. Like
it has to be.
You would not, I just would be crazy to me if they're just like, we're making a new console and like the Switch is no longer relevant. Essentially, I just don't see that happening. I see it being like the new Switch, essentially, not not
2.
like essentially we're not going from GameCube to Wii. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it's kind of like when you open Pandora's box. Nintendo also feels like they don't give a fuck and will march to the beat of their own drum when they want to.
Very true.
And it has been in their favor for the most part. Not looking at you, Wii U, but
yeah,
it does feel like once you open up Pandora's box and you make a console that's both a home console and a portable thing, it's like, how do you ever separate those two and not get criticized for it?
They discontinued the 3DS line because of the Switch.
Yeah.
Right, you're right, and they've always had a handheld on a console. Ever since the first Game Boy came out, which was like late '80s. You know what I mean? And like that's not too much longer after the first SNES or the NES came out. So it's like
question.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they continue that.
Do you think that I know we signed off a little bit ago, but do you think that Nintendo is losing money by not having a separate but now it's like combined into one thing, right? The home and the thing, like developers are making for one system. Is there money being lost? Because traditionally, like I would have bought both the Mario for this quote unquote Switch,
right?
And then also for the 3DS because like I had to have both because I'm a Mario fan. And like, are they losing money because of that? Because like now like they have everyone working on Switch stuff exclusively. Like I don't know. Like
that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think
Nintendo games don't go down in price. They may go like $10 cheaper.
They don't.
It's like finding Legos or gold. It's like they just don't decrease in value.
No, they don't. So, and to some degree, rightly, because people keep buying them at full price. Yeah, it is interesting to see. Like, I have no idea if they're making less money overall. I would think that, I mean, the Nintendo Switch is nearing like PS2 sales numbers. You know what I mean? It's like up in the 120,000 units sold area, I think. And so like it's like it's close to becoming one of the best selling consoles of all time. And so like
you can also do that when you're
something right.
you can also
they
you
do
can
have
also
multiple
do that
lines
though.
of the Switch. I mean, they have the main Switch, they have the handheld switches that don't remove the handles. What are those called? Then they have the new OLED Switch, which I do think looks way better than the original in the screen, especially. But
It does. It's just
I'm not
it's
willing
almost
to
like
pay for it.
not if they're releasing one game every 2 years.
Yeah,
You know?
and at this point, I play more like I'm gonna play Zelda on my TV with a Pro controller. I'm not gonna play that handheld.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like the games I really want to play that are Nintendo, I'm not gonna be using the screen for anyway. I mean, it is that thing of like the processing power. I mean, Zelda Breath of the Wild came out day one with the Switch, or like maybe a month after the Switch. Maybe, I don't know, maybe day one. And like there was major frame drops in some of those areas. Like I'm talking, it would go to like 10 FPS, and the whole game was 30. It wasn't a high frame rate. And we were seeing that happen on the videos that they were like the gameplay previews of this new one. It's like, in some ways it's astonishing how weak in processing power the Switch is, and yet they're putting out their mainline brand new Zelda game on it. You know what I mean? It's
again, they don't have to. They don't have to. Even though the fans clamor for it, they can abuse their consumers because consumers are obsessed with it. Like me,
brand.
I get it. It's like Apple.
They got the best brand in video games easily of all time and ever, and have been. And then since they've started.
Yeah. Mario is going to cross $900 million tomorrow, probably. And
I mean, I think I've seen rumors of like the new mainline Mario game is coming out within the next year, which will sell gangbusters. And it is a little curious. Like, surely they would have preferred to have one come out with the movie, I would think.
Maybe. I think this is a case again where it doesn't matter too much because it's Nintendo.
Because it's Mario. You're right.
But this also, it only helps its case to come out. It could be this fall. It could be like the new system and the new Mario. I mean, Super Mario Odyssey was what was day one with the Switch, because I bought the Switch, I believe.
No, it came out a year after the Switch.
Oh, okay. Then I bought the Switch the day Odyssey came out then.
Or not a year, like 9 months. It came out in the fall. The Switch came out in the early spring.
So I'm like, for me right now, I'll tell you right now, I will be buying a new Nintendo console if they announce a Mario game day one, day out with it.
What is it exclusive? What if it still works on your old Switch?
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy it if it's. Yeah, I'll.
Will you buy the new one
console? Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I want the best experience. It would have to be
a really significant upgrade for me. Like,
it has to be. The other one's 7 years old, right? I mean,
and it wasn't powerful it wasn't super powerful when it came out.
The thing is, I don't see a world where the new one is going to be anywhere comparable to the PS5 or even the Xbox at all.
No,
no.
I mean,
it might be PS3 level,
and then
maybe.
I mean, in theory, we're 3 to 4 ways from the next PlayStations and Xboxes, and so like even if it is close to comparable at this level, it won't be in a few years. It'll be dwarfed. But that's been Nintendo's whole history since like the GameCube. Like the Nintendo 64 was like the best at like 3D graphics compared to like the PlayStation. But like when PlayStation 2 came out and Xbox came out and GameCube came out, GameCube was so far behind in terms of like graphical power. It didn't matter. I mean, and GameCube didn't sell as well as like the Wii or the Nintendo 64. But then I mean, like it seemed like at that generation they chose a very different strategy path towards making games, and like high fidelity was not their top priority.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be there. I am the reason why they can do this to us, because I will be there to consume their product day one.
Yeah. I mean, as long as there's more Zelda games coming out, I'll always want to have a Nintendo.
I mean, but don't you think you said that? I mean, you said something that kind of like was true and also bothered me at the same time, and that you said that the next PS6 and Xbox whatever will be 3 to 4 years away. I'm like, I'd like to play a game on my current PS5.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Before I buy another console.
Well, and I will say, I do feel safer in the Xbox camp, because they've kind of said, hey, the next one we're going to make is going to be iterative on this one. And like, our plan is that those games you can still play on your old one. Like at the series, like whatever comes out next for Xbox, I should still be able to play all the new games on my Series X.
They
in
have
theory.
been great about that. Yeah, I mean,
And so
that is
that's
their
been their stated strategy. And so that at least makes me feel a little better like, okay, well, I'm not going to be obsolete soon, at least not totally obsolete. But yeah, it is interesting on the PlayStation side where they've been like, we believe in generations. They've kind of taken the exact opposite stance. And so it will be interesting because it feels like, I mean, 7 is usually like the console life cycle. Most of them have lasted like 7 years and then we get the next one. But it would be weird if we didn't get like 20. I mean, it's 2023. They came out in 2020. And it would be really weird if we didn't get at least to like 2028. Like it feels like none of the best games that either of these systems are going to have on them in their lifetime have come out yet. You know, I imagine Starfield to be a huge game for Xbox.
They got pushed back to next spring too, didn't it?
No, it's in September, I think, or October.
I think it got pushed again. Also,
not since, let's see.
Game Pass now has 25 million
September
subscribers.
6th.
It's still
Starfield.
September.
It was supposed to come out like this month. Was the last and then I got pushed to September.
I can't keep up with it. But
no,
think about real quick. Let me just do this last number. We'll hop off here.
Cool.
25 million million subscribers. 1, 2, 3 times $15 a month. So they make roughly, Daniel, $375 million a month on Game Pass subscribers.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, like Xbox has had a rough start to their generation, which is becoming a trend. But this generation, they've had Game Pass, and they did not have that when the Xbox 360 or Xbox One launched. And so there is this thing of like, yes, I'm not getting, the new Final Fantasy maybe on this, or, PlayStation's about to have Spider-Man and all these things that you won't get on Xbox. But at the same time, Xbox is the best bang for your buck, bar none. And the amount of games that are on Game Pass, the quality of games, and just the fact that I'm not going to have to buy a new Bethesda game, even though I would, no questions asked, buy that game. I don't have to. It's on Game Pass, and it will be as long as I'm like, it's an Xbox first party game. It will never leave. And I just think like that has made a huge difference this generation. And I think maybe a bigger difference than I even thought it could, because I think, and this year's a big year. I mean, Starfield's got a hit. Halo Halo hit well in the beginning. It made a lot of good impressions and it fell off quick. Starfield has to hit well, and it has to be like, if it's Bethesda putting out a Bethesda game, it should be popular for years. You know what I mean? Like if Skyrim is still relevant today from over 12 years ago, if Bethesda can do their magic, they could potentially have another game that's relevant as just as much in 10, 12 years. We'll see.
And that's what's great, because like those games live for 5, 6 years. And that's what you want. You want a subscriber to Game Pass who, keep it so I can play Starfield for 5, 6 years.
Yes, exactly. And so this is a big year for Xbox. We will see. Starfield's gotten delayed enough to know that like they're at least having some issues getting all the kinks smoothed out. So, it will be a big year for Xbox. And I mean, like, I think Spider-Man's coming out in September as well. So that'll be a big, interesting, just kind of sales months. Like, how does Starfield do compared to PlayStation? Now, of course, Starfield will also be on PC though.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think Spider-Man will be at launch. So that in that way, it may do better just because there's more than one console supporting it in theory.
I don't think so. I think maybe in the long run, I could see like in 10 years, it sold 40 million or 60 million copies. But in the first week of release, Spider-Man's going to break records probably. It's going to max out the PS5 numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to, the first one made 40 million, I think, copies in like the first week of release or something.
Now, I will say that was at a much higher saturation place for consoles. There's a lot less PS5s in the wild now.
That's why I said it'll max it out. It'll max it out, But
what is the PS?
But is Starfield? Is it also playing on Xbox One?
Actually, no. I don't think it's not backwards compatible. No.
Yeah, well, in that case, it's definitely not going to, because there's more PS5 sold than the Xbox Series X and S.
Okay.
There's no way.
Well,
And,
yeah.
there's no
in
way.
January, there was 29 million PS5 sold to date. So
Yeah.
I would assume that's April 2nd. It's at 33.5 million. So it may not do the same numbers just because there aren't as many. Is Spider-Man 2 backwards compatible on PlayStation 4?
I don't know. I suspect it's not.
Yeah, and it's not coming to PC day one. I mean, the second one
It
eventually
definitely is
did.
not. It
Yeah.
definitely will not.
I could see like the PC audience, because also like the Bethesda games are huge on PC because of the modding communities and stuff.
It's possible.
I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Well, I mean,
The other thing is sales. It's going to be hard because there's Game Pass on PC, so people can just sign up for that and not buy it and still play it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
don't
So
know.
like it will be probably difficult to identify who did better in sales, just because they're kind of looking at different metrics.
That's true. We'll see. I don't know. This generation has been what I thought was going to be the bee's knees, has been not as great. And like
Yeah.
I've been playing games more than I did I feel like the last few
Yeah.
years of the last generation. And I haven't been. I also, the thing is, I'm not like playing everything. And so like, I'm sure there's a lot of gems I'm missing out on, but
Sure.
I feel like we're in the generation of the remake and not like
I mean,
new amazing games.
Mostly what I'm playing is old games. So
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, man. We did a long pod, and I thought we were gonna have a hard time talking for 40 minutes alone.
Come on,
I
you
think
should know us.
I thought I did. So anyway, my name is Donovan Thompson,
I am Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.